Let's look a little closer at some of the top issues that will likely emerge in the 2023 General Assembly races. And you touched on abortion, but how much will abortion rights continue to dominate the conversation, especially when there is a push to enact a 15-week restriction in Virginia, and obviously, if the Senate flips over to Republican control, that could, very well be a reality. So, how much will abortion rights be part of the conversation?
I think it's going to be a huge part of the conversation. This is now a state issue, and the governor is on record as favoring a restriction on abortion to only allowing the first 15 weeks. Hugely controversial. I cannot imagine that Democrats would not play this issue very aggressively in their elections next year. The sleeper issue actually was abortion in this election cycle. You look at the pre-election polls, it was not showing up as one of the top issues of voter motivation, but the exit polls showed something very different. The exit polling data showed that it was as much as a number 2 issue. In terms of voter motivation, and the vote turnout was decidedly in one direction, particularly among young voters who turned out in big numbers and did so heavily for Democrats.
Yeah. And I will say anecdotally, nearly every Democratic voter I interviewed over that 45 days said that abortion was the driving reason that they were casting their ballot and casting it for Democrats. So what do Republican General Assembly candidates do with the abortion issue, Bob? And I know it will depend on where they are in the Commonwealth.
Some places they're going to call the Democrats extreme. I've seen some polling that suggests that the 15-week ban is actually in and of itself not that unpopular. The challenge is that the Democrats are likely to portray that position just as the Republicans portray Democratic positions on gun control as sort of the first step towards something else. So the governor is saying, well, I want to reach a compromise on this, and this 15 weeks is a compromise. At the same time, however, the Democrats, what they'll do is they'll point to statements saying, well, I will gleefully sign any pro-life legislation that comes my way. The Democrats are going to argue this is simply the first step in an effort to actually ban it, and they're going to make that an issue, particularly in the suburban areas. I think it's going to be a troublesome issue for the Republicans in Northern Virginia. I think it would be troublesome in RVA, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in Hampton Roads, because that's the place where Glenn Youngkin is extremely popular. He did extremely well in the election in Hampton Roads, far better than he did in Northern Virginia. And that's the place where the Republicans flipped 2 or 3 seats in the last House election. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think in Northern Virginia it's going to play out dramatically to the advantage of the Democrats. I'm not sure how it's going to play out in Hampton Roads.
Did you have another word on that, Mark?
Well, the context has changed entirely, of course, because of the Supreme Court decision. Republicans used to be able to say, in response to characterizations of being extremists, that they support precedent, constitutional law, and that they favor secondary restrictions on abortion, no taxpayer funding, parental notification, parental consent, no late-term abortions. And look at those Democrats, they're the extremists. They won't even accept reasonable restrictions on abortion. But now that's all been thrown away by the Supreme Court decision, because the whole argument of saying I favor constitutional precedent is gone. And now their position has been completely laid bare, and they can't run away from it. They can't disguise it as they used to. And that's, I think, what makes it fundamentally different now, in that it's a federalism issue. It belongs to the states. It's going to be a very big issue in elections next year.